Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm joined by Lee Davy. Lee is a lifelong student of activating human potential, including bioenergy, energy alignment, biohacking, longevity, high performance, and vitality. And Lee blends the worlds of mystery, magic, and matter to harmonize the mind, body, and spirit, awakening the dormant parts of us once again to become superhuman. With more than 30 years of personal growth experience, he combines science, mysticism, and technology, supporting you to activate, align, and optimize the self once more. Welcome, Lee. It's so lovely to have you.
Thanks, Melina. So grateful to be here.
So, Lee, tell us a little bit about your mission through your work.
It's a big one, and at times I check into, just kind of wondering if I'm actually crazy or if this is something I've just made for myself to do or if it's actually a thing. I would really distill it down to two words: vitality and freedom.
Mm.
And, I think I always say that there are layers and levels to this work, to being human, to healing, to freedom. And I think I look at the vitality component as um, being able to stand fully in who we are, with an optimized and aligned kind of mind, body, spirit aspect of the self, with a true understanding of that, and then be able to utilize that and leverage that to step into total freedom and fulfillment on every level.
So, freedom from what?
Freedom really in who we are, in how we show up, freedom from fear, freedom from disease, freedom from control, from coercion, from fraud. I think we'll probably touch on this at some point, but um, you know, from my studies and my journey, which really began initially to discover what truth was. What is the truth? And I came upon a post yesterday that said truth doesn't need your perspective, or it doesn't need, like, truth just is, right? And so my whole journey, my whole life has been in seek and discovery of, okay, what is the truth? What is the truth about who I am, about the world that we live in, about my place in it, and then, about what society actually is and how does it function, and you know who controls it, what the money system is like, and what I've discovered, and take it or leave it. And I would encourage anybody listening, um, not to just take it, to do your own research. But through my journey, through my research, I've discovered that much of what we're told is not the truth.
For example?
Who we actually are, what we're capable of, what what is actually health and longevity, or can create health and longevity, what the money system is, who the government is. Like, we can go down, there are a multitude of rabbit holes that we could go down. All of that, none of that is true, at least from the stories that we're told and what we're led to believe.
So, what is truth for you?
Well, if I were to start with, like, who I am, it's not the perceived persona of who I've been led to believe I am, or who I've come to think I am based on my personality and based on the role that I play and how I fit into society. It's not this physical meat suit, and it's so much more. We are mind, body, spirit beings. I truly believe we are spirits here having a physical experience. But if we're just perceiving through our senses, then we're only capturing a small fraction of what's actually going on here. And I love kind of the intersection of science and spirituality right now. Like, we're at a point where science is catching up to what spiritualist sages, prophets have said for millennia. And just an example of that is that we're only able to perceive 1/1 billionth of the light spectrum. with our eyes, yet there are, or hear a small fraction of what's actually going on, but there are whistles that dogs can hear that we can't. There are x-rays and ultraviolet rays and radio waves and all this stuff that is not typically detectable, auric fields that most people can't see with the naked eye. But all these frequencies are all around us all the time. But the question that comes up and that I pose is, how much time are we spending tuning in to those more subtle frequencies? Or do we just let the senses dictate where we go and how we live our lives?
Yeah, not only that, and also this idea that we're living in a bit of a toxic culture. And, today it's interesting. I was watching a workshop and this woman speaking about how in in the early ages of our existence, we were very connected to nature and the elements and our intuition and our bodies. There were a lot of healers that worked through cycles or the moon or dreams or the elements and the seasons and just very connected. And that idea that we lived in tribes and there was this collective healing energy going on. And then it's interesting because she talked about the witch hunts that happened around, I don't know which century, 15th or whenever they were going on, and how that was sort of the way for, and that was the same time when governments were started creating themselves and taxes and systems and control and the church and how do we and they literally started hunting the healers, which were witches or are healing women or men, midwives. And it almost became a prosecution to be in touch with your body and your inner wisdom and healing abilities. And then after that, universities were created and very male dominated doctors, and also this idea that the mind and body are separate. I think, therefore I am. We started outsourcing our safety. So doctors would tell us if we're healthy and safe, or the government would tell us if we're safe, or the priest would tell us if we're, you know, being sinful or not. So we completely started losing touch with our innate wisdom, and the healers started to become hunted, and the doctors were like always correct and always right. And it's interesting to see this from the psychology perspective, how everything became very institutionalized and how they dealt with mental illness as well. So it's a very interesting shift to see in history. And I'd love your opinion on this because to me, it seems like now we're in a point in humanity where we have all this knowledge. There's a lot of people that are aware of all this, but at the same time, it's like two very polar opposite situations where there are these huge systems in place, and it's very challenging to escape this matrix kind of because it's built in a way that it doesn't it has a good grip on you, and you sort of have to learn to play the game. And the other pole is that I think the more we learn that we have so much power and wisdom within us, like even in terms of health and healing, and how much power like plant medicine has, for example, and that we don't need all the medication always or the antidepressant pills, or like the answers are literally within us. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on these things.
Yeah, I agree with so much of what you said. And I think, for me, that's kind of where my journey began was I look at it as a big puzzle, right? Whether we're
Mm,
talking this larger societal puzzle and this such a vast web that has been woven that we've been coerced and indoctrinated into as soon as we're born. And I can talk more about the whole birth certificates and commerce and all that stuff in a little bit. But that would be secondary to really rediscovering who we are, and putting the pieces of that puzzle together. So, when we talk about kind of giving our power away, which is the way I look at what you just shared, we've been in that process for how many hundreds, maybe thousands of years of, the doctor knows more, the lawyer knows more. Oh, I got to call the police officer. Oh, I
mm,
got to, it's like we've outsourced all of that power and that understanding and that connection to ourselves, to each other, and to the planet for these experts, right? And it's like well, wait a minute. Is the overweight doctor who's, and not all of them, don't get me wrong, but a great many of them have indoctrinated into this place of superiority for a system that is anything but healthcare. I call it the disease creation and management system. It's not the healthcare system. Let's, go to this expert who's, out of weight or overweight, probably can't climb a flight of stairs without getting out of breath, and on his or her way to heart disease themselves, but they're giving you advice about, taking care of yourself or take this drug. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, wait a minute. How did we get there? Right. So, and again, it goes back to just asking that question of, and the one that I asked very early on of, okay, who am I really? Like, why do I have this anxiety? Why do I feel like I don't fit in? Why am I questioning if all of this stuff is the truth that we've been led to believe from indoctrination or school to get a job, to work for 40 years of your life, to maybe, if you're lucky, enjoy some twilight years and vacation a little bit, if you have any health left over, to then die and that's it. It's like, why aren't we questioning that narrative? Right? Why aren't we questioning who we really are and what we're truly capable of? And when we start to put those pieces of that puzzle together and saying, wait a minute, I'm not going to outsource my health and vitality. I'm not going to take a passive reactive approach. I'm actually going to take an approach from a space of ownership and proactivity, because there's so much healing and again, I call it vitality because I feel like healthcare has been so bastardized. Um, and there's such a kind of a dogmatic narrative around it that when you say that, it's like, oh, well, that's doctors, hospitals, pharmaceuticals, so on and so forth. Whereas vitality to me is that proactive approach. And I'm going to look at breath work. I'm going to look at my nutrition. I'm going to look at getting into a gym or doing yoga or going running. I'm going to look at how my mind is working and how overstressed I am, how I'm sleeping. And there's so much information. There's so many tools available to us to put those pieces of the self back together again, right? To take that ownership. I call it radical self-responsibility. I'm not going to outsource this. I'm going to take responsibility and I'm going to take that proactive approach to putting the pieces of me together so that I truly know who I am, what I'm capable of, that I am a spirit here having a physical experience. And then what else is there? Right? So once I know who I am, then it's like I can pan out and I can say, okay, so what's actually going on with government? What's actually going on in our money system? Am I truly free? Hmm, I don't know. And this really came about for me during the COVID years. I was in Mexico and it dawned on me, I'm not free. I'm hiding. And I got really honest with myself and was like, if I was truly free, I should be able to go anywhere and do anything I choose anywhere in the world, so long as I have no intention to, nor bring no harm to another being. And if I can't, am I truly free? Are we truly free?
Think that was a big wake up call for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. But then, and then I'm in a place where we're hosting events, but then there are fake passes that you can get to travel the world. And I didn't want to do any of that because it wouldn't change anything. If we just go along to get along and do the fake thing because it's easy and I can just pay some money to do it, what good is that doing the collective?
So, what do we do? Do we try to change the system? Do we try to escape it? What's your strategy here?
Oh, big questions. Honestly, it's knowledge is power, right? And I think, and again, this was me up until the last 8 months. I didn't even know the game that I was playing. Right. So when we're talking about the money system and commerce, when we're talking about birth certificates, when we're talking about even travel, it's like, or jurisdiction, or like any of that stuff that could be, stated as law. or law versus legal. I like to think of it. It's like we've got checkers and chess. The boards look the same, right? And we think we're playing chess, or let's go with checkers, but the the system makers, the rule makers, the law makers, whatever you want to call them, they're playing chess. So we need to know the game that we're playing, and this deep dive of what commerce is and how with the birth certificate we're actually pulled into merchants. We're pulled into, and everything in the system is about money. Make no mistake about it. And yet money as we know it is not what many of us think it is. Money is the only actual money would be silver and gold. The paper stuff that we think of as money are actually notes. They're promissory notes. They're promises to pay. So since 1933, when fiat was taken off of the gold standard, we've never paid for anything ever. Think about that.
We've
And
only made
then
promises.
we've made promises to pay, right? But everybody's enamored by this thing that actually has zero value. That's why the
Mhm.
cost of living is going up, not because the cost of goods are going up, because the paper thing that we agree to as money is actually going down.
It's the
So
ultimate
knowing,
marketing.
yeah, absolutely. So knowing the rules to that game, right? Knowing that um, our signature, our autograph, and therefore our labor or our energy is the only true value. That as soon as we sign a piece of paper with nothing else on it, that becomes the money, right? And if you haven't looked at anybody who's watched The Matrix, if you haven't looked at it as a documentary, you need to go back and rewatch it and think, okay, this is actually a documentary of the world that we live in, of our society, not fictional. And I remember the first time I watched it at the very end of the first movie, I just got chills and I'm like, whoa,
Mm.
this is not fiction. This is reality. This is a documentary.
Do you think the Matrix is like karmic retribution? Have you heard of karmic retribution? This idea that like it's the way of the what would you call the group of people that control the world? I guess whatever they're called,
Powers
Illuminati
that
or
are.
I don't know. Yeah. Is the way of feeding little clues into society so that they sort of cleanse their karma. And they say, well, we gave you clues as to what was going to happen. So, for example, The Simpsons, all the clues that were in The Simpsons are these little hidden, yeah, clues that are either in movies or in marketing. Or the idea is that they call it karmic retribution. It's their way to sort of share a little bit what's happening so that they can, I don't know why, cleanse their karma or something. It's a game. I don't know. It's a power thing. It's who knows? It's a theory. Not sure. But I'm wondering if the Matrix was sort of linked to that, or if it was just made by someone who really understood the system and wanted to portray that.
I think I hadn't heard it called that before, but I would agree that that's, when we kind of pan out and up to, the higher laws, if you will,
Mm.
um, that's one of the fundamental laws of the universe. We can't make anybody do anything against their free will, right? So everything is here if we do the research. And that's why, I invited at the beginning of the session for people to do their own research. Everything about the money system is here. You
Mhm.
just have to look. You just have to know what you're looking for, right? And the controlling mechanisms of this realm, they can't do it like they can't do it as in against our free will, right? And so they skirt around it by kind of putting it in plain sight. But then there's all the stuff about, well, yeah, you're crazy, you're a conspiracy theorist, So the narrative around who the people are that have uncovered some of this stuff turns the rest of the masses against them, right? So it's like the asylum or the hospital realm that we're all in is patrolled. very by the people that are in it because of the indoctrination, because of the narrative that's been orchestrated and put together.
Yeah.
Um, Even though it's obviously not divine, all of the truth is here if we just get the courage and take that proactive approach to look for it,
Mhm.
right? But we've got to get up off of our behinds and actually take those steps. Imagine a very unpopular topic, especially from the money system side of things, because I have a lot of conscious entrepreneurs and now this whole idea of conscious investment with pairing them with conscious entrepreneurs. My question is, if we're just overlaying a better intentioned thing on top of a corrupt system, how's that going to change anything? So how can we understand the system to from the inside to use those rules to create a new one that makes the old one obsolete, to quote Buckminster Fuller?
So one part of it is understanding the game that's being played, and that's what you're saying now. How do we understand the system from the inside? And so there is hope to create a new system, in your opinion?
I believe so, 100%. I think that honestly, I think that's what we're in the process of right now. And obviously, there are going to be bridges and overpasses that we'll have to take to get there. Like we can't go from where we are to new system. It's like there's got to be a passover that we have to
Change.
get, right?
Yeah.
So again, that goes back to the layers and levels or steps and stages, right? So understand the system, and then it's like because again, there are so many brilliant ideas and projects of okay, if we're going to create a new earth or a new world that works for everyone, what what do those mechanisms, what do those societal sectors, what do those projects look like, right? But then how do we take the steps to overlay that or create a foundational economy, if you will, that is in service, the highest service to that?
Mm. Okay, I'm gonna take myself as an example because I feel like I'm a pretty average Joe, so it could work for a lot of people listening to this. So I'm a psychologist. I live in Greece. I pay my taxes. I pay my health insurance. I pay my insurance for my car. How does someone like me start thinking this way? And what are the first steps to understand the system and to assist the changing of it?
Would you say you know who you are beyond the physical senses?
I'd say I'm working on it. I'd say sometimes I feel I do, and sometimes I feel confused or lost.
Me too. Me too.
That it's a roller coaster.
It is for sure. That would be where I would start, honestly, because it's kind of like and I'm sure there'll be many people that will have that cognitive dissonance with hearing some of this stuff for the first time,
Mhm.
right? And I remember when I started studying the difference between law and legal, right? And really, it comes down to word wizardry, right? Like if we look at a man or a woman, that's one level below the creation of the creator. But then we get into citizen and defendant and person. And so there's all these other terms that in the Black's Law Dictionary, the most widely used law dictionary in the world, they actually mean something completely different than what we think they do. Right. And my question or a question that I'll pose is, do you know everything that you think you know? Or do you just think you know it? How did you come to start paying taxes? Is that just what the people before you did? How did we come to celebrate Christmas? Do we actually know the true meaning of Christmas, or did we just celebrate it because our parents did and their parents did and their parents did?
I still don't
And
know
if we
why I'm
don't,
paying taxes.
so if you don't know, then isn't it worth doing a little bit of research? And if that You don't know who you are. If you don't know why you're paying taxes, you don't know why you celebrate Christmas. You don't know why, like anything that you don't actually know at the root, at the core of you, from your heart, not thinking, because this thing is, if I could just shut this off permanently, I'd be happy. Because to me, the heart is the knowing. And if you don't know in your heart about any of these things, open, open to the idea that maybe what you think is not actually the truth. And so go on search and find the truth.
Could you paint me a picture of a society or a system that you envision for the world?
Yeah, it's one built on the foundations of love, equality, integrity, radical, radical self-responsibility, truth, and freedom.
Sounds like Burning Man.
It could be. I've never been. I've never been.
Yeah.
But just like taking that stance of responsibility and ownership first for ourselves, right? And again, putting those pieces of that puzzle together of like, okay, if I'm a divine being, how am I showing up? And is that divine being leading, or am I leading from ego? And I'm scared every day still. There's still so many things that I'm like, I didn't do that or I didn't say that. And that fear really keeps me from showing up the way that I truly want to in many ways.
Mm.
So it's like, and that's another aspect of freedom. Like, what are the fears that are keeping us from showing up as our highest, most divine, most authentic, most loving, most caring self that is reflected back to us by every person that we cross paths with? So how do we show up as that first? Right. And then discover and bring those truths, and they are bubbling to the surface. There's so many organizations that I've connected with now about the money system. And I truly believe that our current system will crash within the next 10 years, which is why this is such an important topic. And so to find these different societal sectors, if you will, and bring the truth to the surface so that we can create those bridges to cross into this world that is equal, is of love, is of integrity, is of reciprocity. That's a hard one to say too.
Mm.
On every level, and then all of that and that kind of initial putting those pieces together of the self will, I believe, lead to total freedom and fulfillment, total vitality on every level. But it starts with the self.
So you think the financial system is going to crash within the next 10 years? Do you think crypto is going to replace it?
See, that's a slippery slope too. I'm not super well versed in crypto. I have a lot of friends who are much well versed than I am. A lot of them say it is. And I believe it would be another step as well. My only concern is the cashless system, which, there's a lot of talk now about the digital IDs coming out. I
Yeah.
saw another post about if you're not using cash, then they don't need to keep it around. So then that puts us into this cashless system.
Mm, mm.
Okay, everything's online. And
Yeah.
then, so, with our cards and with, whatever tap that we're using to pay for the things, it's like if, again, the kind of the powers that be, if we're looking at it from a control perspective, then, you don't get your next booster or your next this, or, if you're not consuming the way that they want you to,
Yep. You get
they can shut it off.
penalized.
You can't consume it all. So
Yeah.
want to be careful of.
And
And
now they see, so I went to the bank to open up a bank account here, and I went into the app and it's got a section where it says, find out how carbon friendly your purchases have been.
see, so it's kind of like it's right, it's here,
Hmm.
you know. And to that end, I would just recommend anybody who's listening, I would invite, if do not fall for it,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it's not for the greater good. It's not to make it easier for you. It's not to make it better for
Hmm.
you. It's not for your own protection.
Hmm.
It's to control.
Yeah, I believe that also. I do. I'm not gonna lie, I don't feel like I, as an individual, have so much power to change it, but maybe that's a mistake. Maybe we shouldn't think that way.
Yeah, because I mean, every time you tap or don't tap, every time you take money out or don't, every time you say yes or no, that's a vote,
Mhm.
right? So, and it's not a traditional
Yeah. And it's
election
like
type.
you said, the financial part is one way to like have your resistance. There's all the other ways. There's our health to take control over, take the wisdom, and what we started our conversation with, the wisdom of the body and the connection with the body. And even as women, I was having this conversation the other day, the way women give birth is actually so unnatural. Like under fluorescent hospital lighting, in a position that's not natural for the body, with a doctor telling you what drugs you do or don't need. And even this idea of pushing is actually the opposite. You need to relax and let the body do what it's meant to do. So it's so interesting to see how, in many ways, we've progressed immensely, and in other ways, we're completely skewed from our true nature.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it feels like we're living in an inverse reality. So it's
Mhm.
like if they're saying, go this way or do this, well, maybe I should think about going that way and doing that. And that's for whatever reason, I started asking questions at a really early age. Those questions of who am I? What is this? Why am I here? Why do I feel like this? I was like 13, 14 years old,
Yeah.
and it's a part of me remembered that
Mm.
that this way, this direction, what we're being told, what we're perceiving through our senses was not the truth. And
Mm.
so I started going this way a really long time ago.
Mm. Do you think there's any country on our planet that still has that freedom, has that sort of more free life, or is still connected to that
Well,
authenticity?
it's interesting, and I haven't had the opportunity to go as of yet, but I've felt like I've had many past lives in Japan, in China. So I think there are definitely elements of it in places like that. And actually, just as an example, um, I love vitality tools and technologies. And so one of the leaders with regards to molecular hydrogen is Japan and Korea. And they've actually got the molecular hydrogen inhalation therapy in hospitals.
Tell me about molecular hydrogen.
So it would be it's a selective super antioxidant. So it works at the cell level and restores and rejuvenates the mitochondria. Oxidative stress, which basically is inflammation, leads to disease. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking about eye degeneration, cancer, stomach issues, skin issues. That's essentially what it comes from, is the breakdown of the cell. This eliminates that oxidative stress.
Mm, okay.
So just as an example, I'm going to a place called Don Minher in Italy, which is Hermetics, the Hermetic Principles community. And they've been living on the land in community from the higher laws, if you will, um, for the last 40 or 50 years. So I believe there are pockets of places that are like, okay, we're going to preserve this wisdom. And, again, that's part of the truth that's bubbling up at this time.
Mm. That's very interesting. If anyone's listening to this episode, please comment a pocket of wisdom that we can explore because I'd love to find out more. And I resonate with Asia a lot, Bhutan and Japan, and it seems like the East has a lot of ancient wisdom, and the West is kind of losing the plot, I think, and Europe is following
Yeah,
very well in the tracks.
I
Yeah,
agree. I agree.
yeah. Lee, one last question. I'd love to know, what does success look like to you nowadays?
And, it's a tricky question because I still get caught up in the I should have more money, I should have this, I should have built that, I should have and I imagine that's a societal, kind of a deeply embedded belief that I'm still grappling with letting go of like, hey, it's not about the money, it's not about the houses, it's not about the toys, it's not about what you have. So I would say it's really coming into a deeper understanding of who I am, of why I'm here, of what I'm here to do in terms of service, and really being able to live from the higher laws, from that space of divinity and connection and love, and really more attuned to the subtle energies that are all around us rather than still perceiving through the senses and being like, oh yeah, I'm just not there yet.
So anything that brings you closer to your truth is a success.
Yeah. Yeah. And being able to live as that.
Mm, lovely. Lee, was there anything, I mean, we covered a lot of different
Yes.
topics. Was there something we didn't mention that you would like to mention before we close?
Mm, let's see here. Just that invitation to people and because it's sneaky, right? Like the reality is sneaky. Our egos are sneaky. Um, I don't know how many times over the years that I'm like, okay, I'm at a good level. Like I don't need to push as hard. I don't need to, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, I'm right back to square one. So I just really want to invite people to be open to the idea that you are more, that this is a big puzzle that we're putting together from the self all the way up to different aspects of society to an entirely new world that works for everyone. And to question everything until you know that you know, and you don't just think that you know, until at a soul level, just be open, be curious, and explore. And something I sometimes have trouble with, play. Have a lot more fun with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Well, Lee, thank you so much for joining me today for this very interesting conversation. Lots of insights, lots of food for thought. And yeah, I'm going to share your information in the episode notes so people can find you and connect with you. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on, Melina. And I love that you're doing this and just opening the mic for some of us to share our insights and passions. And so it's really great. I feel really honored to have been here.
Yeah, happy to do so. Thank you for joining, everyone. See you soon.